Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty, a Haggerty10 Twitter handle, as you all know by now, and I'm joined today by Sean Martin at Sean Martin TCW on his Twitter handle. Good morning, Sean.
Morning, Tony. How's it going?
I'm all right. It's Tuesday, March the 21st. Significant day if you're a particular Celtic striker, but we'll get to that in due course, won't we, Sean?
We shall.
Now, first things first, as we do every day, we've got a new offer for you. If you want to take us up on that, subscribe to the Celtic Way. You know what to do. Supporting top quality journalism, covering the club you love. It's £1 for 3 months for unlimited access to everything that's written on the website, and all for the click of a button, guys. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. We thank everybody that's already done that. Thanks for your good morning messages. All the best to you as well. We enjoy it every day. We like the toing and froing and all the comments that come in. Couldn't do the show without you, so we appreciate that. But if you haven't subscribed, give us a whirl. £1 for 3 months of unlimited access. And click that button, subscribe button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. And we also say thank you to SENECA. As you all know by now, the Celtic Way Morning Briefing is now sponsored by SENECA Medical Group. And SENECA are the #1 hair transplant company in Europe, and they offer innovative hair restoration treatments. And you can find out more about SENECA via the links in the description of this video. Now, Sean, this video's strikers are going to be the main topic of conversation, or attackers, if you want to call them that, or forwards, whatever way.
Although we must say a defender has just taken the limelight right as we were coming on air, hasn't he?
It has indeed, Sean. Want to tell the viewers what's happened?
Mr. Anthony Ralston's been called into the Scotland squad after my moaning the other day. Steve Clark obviously listens.
So the Bricky's in, yep. Plenty of people watch it, Sean, Ange Postecoglou, Steve Clark. Look, they all line up to watch the Celtic Way Morning Briefing. You know that. It makes sense. We speak a lot of sense in between the nonsense. But there you have it. But yes, the Bricky, Anthony Ralston, well done to him. Steve Clark, well done, Anthony. Being called up to the Scotland squad.
It was actually Jack Hendry.
I'm speaking about.
Sorry, it was actually Jack Hendry that withdrew.
Jack Hendry went well.
Excellent.
Well, unlucky for Jack, but good for Tony Ralston. Good on him. Now, strikers, Sean. We watched Big O score a wonderful goal on Saturday. I loved that goal, real striker's goal. And I spoke to somebody yesterday who knew a thing or two about putting the ball in the net for the leather belts. And that was Frank McAvenny. And Frank was talking about that every Celtic striker has a moment when the fans say, brilliant, you're a bona fide centre forward now. You're one of us. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the fold. And it doesn't necessarily come with their first goal, because that was O's third goal in a Celtic jersey, but it's the most significant to date, Sean. It was the winner, albeit Sead Haksabanović's goal was the gloss on, you said, the scoreline on Saturday, but O's was the winner.
It's the winner. It's the winner.
And McAvenny was saying that's a weight off his shoulders in terms of he can relax now. It might flow a wee bit better, but brilliant striker's goal. He's got a bit of everything, bit of strength, bit of aerial prowess, can lay it off, can work the channels, stuff like that. So McAvenny was really pleased for him, and he said he's seeing a lot in him, and he was also saying that he's got the benefit now at club and international level, being schooled by Ange Postecoglou and Jurgen Klinsmann, who knew a thing or two about bulging the onion bag, as they say, as well. So it's all positive for us, Sean. Were you impressed with his performance on Saturday as well?
Yeah, I was, and just to take it overall, I mean, I'll put Brown Warriors comment up first. He says it was a real mature number 9's goal, strength and determination with a well-placed header. And David Hughes comes in and says, morning boys, I've been very impressed with O in the limited game time he's had thus far. He's got a great mix of physicality and movement. And the limited game time thing's something I want to touch on. He's actually played in 10 matches, but as I always do, I kind of look at the minutes equivalent. It's especially useful when it comes to things like goals, because it worked when you looked at Giakoumakis' record. You were going, well, he's not starting quite as often. He's getting half an hour here and there. but yet he's still producing the goods. How many's came in a sub appearance, how many's came in starts, all that kind of stuff. Now, O's only played 10 games. There's no real use in divvying it up by sub appearances and starts. He's only had one start, so it's all sub appearances virtually. But he's played 284 minutes, so he is averaging just under half an hour per game. And as I say, I like to give the minutes to games equivalent. So in his minutes equivalent, it's like 3 games, just over 3 games, and he scored 3 goals. So you're kind of like, what more do you want from him? His first couple of goals, you're right, were not winners. They were kind of what I would call pile-on goals. Celtic were already winning. Well, that last one was a bona fide match winner. But in the games where he's come on and not scored, I would say he's mostly still made his presence felt. Yeah. And yes, of course, there is a big difference between starting a game against fresh defenders and coming on after they've experienced 60 minutes of Hyeon-gyu. But again, what more can you ask of him so far? Not much, I would say. I think he's doing really well.
Yes, indeed, Sean. And to illustrate that point, just how good his goal was on Saturday, if you look at Sean will put the link to the article in the comment section, but look at the picture that accompanies it. It's a wonderful picture, Sean, of O in mid-air, having his shirt pulled, and you can see exactly the kind of the way he threw himself at that ball, and he was just determined to make it his. He was being fouled in the process, but nothing or nobody was going to stop him from getting to that ball. It's a cracking picture, actually. I think somebody actually put out on Twitter this morning what a picture, and it is. It's a brilliant picture. I've ever taken it. Big up to them, but just Celtic striker in mid-air, heading the ball into the goal, whilst close attentions of the Hibs defender. Keimatsu, there's plenty more that O has to offer than just a wrecking ball. You'll see that by next year. I never just thought he was a wrecking ball. I took a look at him and thought, you kind of look at these players and think, yeah, when they come on and can they do a bit? And I agree with Frank McAvenny that I think there's a bit of everything there and that he has real potential to improve. And I think working under the 2 managers that he's mentioned will help him improve. But that, for me, was a striker's instinctive goal. Just go in where it hurts and no questions asked. Be first to the ball, paces on the ball. All you have to do is steer it towards the target and it's a goal.
Charlie McGarvey saying when O's first touch improves, he'll have real potential. I think he's got real potential, but there's obviously always aspects of a game that you can improve. But I'm going to put up this one from Andrew Galea, which I think's a great comment. It says Celtic's attacking patterns are really starting to click, which is good news for Hyeon-gyu and O. And I agree with that. I think you already know, everybody already sees what Hyeon-gyu, he's been here long enough, the positions he can take up, where he can move, how he can move. A lot of what Ange Postecoglou asks from his strikers is not necessarily involved on the ball. It's off the ball work, it's off the ball movement, to present in that area that he likes them to be in. And I think, again, in the limited game time that he's got, I think O has proven, not just with the goal on Saturday, because that was obviously from a corner, he's naturally going to be in there, but in these sub appearances, even where he's not scored, he likes to get into those areas. And Andrew Galea's right, those attacking patterns will get him chances in those areas, so it does bode well.
He likes to put himself about, Sean, I think is the phrase, isn't it?
Not even necessarily put himself about, just getting into those areas, rather than not necessarily having to make it a physical thing, but getting into those areas like Hyeon-gyu does, the similar areas. Then Andrew's right, the patterns will present him with chances in them.
There is more than the physical element about him as well. I think that's what Macca was saying too, and I think so as well. I just think that he has a bit of everything about him, and if he can kind of sharpen all the rough edges, then you will have a decent player with real potential there. And he's still only young, Sean, as well.
Yep.
O is so much more than just a Georges Giakoumakis style battering ram, in my opinion, says Kaiser. I think that too. I think he's got a decent touch. I really do. I think he can run the channels as well, but as you say, he can. We spoke about it quite a lot, those idiosyncrasies and behaviours, and he does make those kind of striker runs. I mean, because he had a couple of chances prior to him scoring on Saturday, which a sharper O might have buried. There was one in particular that felt him, and I think he kind of skewed it wide, didn't he?
There was one after he scored that, statistically was his best chance, and as I said yesterday when we were speaking about it, I liked the way that he was approaching it after the game. It wasn't just absolutely buzzing, full of myself that I've scored the match winner, which he would have been rightly entitled to be, by the way. But more like, well, actually, there was a couple of other chances I could have put away, and there was ways I could have maybe taken it better and stuff. So I like that.
And as well, even Frank McAvenny brought up the Seven Nation Army song, Sean, at the stadium, going a bit wild with that one. And, you know, and the addendum to that piece is that you'll probably hear that a lot now, won't you, in stadiums?
Coming to a stadium near you, you said, wasn't it?
Yes, I did indeed. And the Celtic fans kind of appreciate him. But I'm delighted for O, because it showed him that he has, that he can deliver big goals when it matters, because he dug the team out a hole on Saturday because they badly needed that goal. And there was like 8 minutes left on the clock, so it's an important goal in terms of the title race. We spoke about that yesterday, what it could have meant, you know, a shaft of daylight for your rivals across the city. So he slammed that door shut firmly, and you know, and I think lots of people now want to see a wee bit more of him, don't they? But at this moment in time, you're not displacing Kyogo, are you? From the
exactly. We're saying all this and quite a lot of praise for him, but he's not going to be in those power rankings next week, Tony, because he's not played enough. He's not played enough minutes to qualify. So, interesting. Maybe. Well, I think it will. I'm presuming have played enough come the end of the season. But for this update, as you all know, we do the power rankings updates and international breaks. We've only had one previous one this year because it was the World Cup, so we waited for that. This is the next international break, probably about next week. And O's not in it because he's not played enough. In fact, the only January signing that's played enough is Alistair Johnston. He is most definitely in it.
Yeah, because I don't think he's missed a game, has he?
Well, Anthony Ralston came in and
played,
he's he had a run, I think, was it 9 successive 90 minutes or something in a row, something like that. But he's definitely played enough. He's in contention in there.
Indeed. Now, someone else making the headlines, Sean, and we want to stress that we'd rather talk about what he's brought to the table so far this season. But Liel Abada, various reports about Liel Abada kicking about, well, let's cut to the chase, saying that he's hankering to leave to go to England and stuff like that. And I think I read somewhere that Southampton are supposed to be wanting to test Celtic's resolve, 10 million bid and all that kind of stuff. But again, that's purely speculation at the minute, Sean, isn't it? Some paper talk. It's come from his former manager, isn't it?
The former club president, I think.
Who said some quotes that
Tikva, I think that's how you pronounce it. But I think it's the former president. But yeah,
who spoke out? Well, spoke out a ton, but said that he was offered a new deal, hasn't signed a new deal because he's desperate to go to England. So,
I mean, the only part of that we didn't know was the England part. I mean,
yes,
we knew that there had been talks going on in the background. That had been reported last year, and the assumption when there's no new deal announced is that there's not been one signed up clearly. So I think the only part of what he said that was kind of new was that he wants to go to England, or whatever the way that he said it, put it. We're not really here to talk about that speculation. We will talk about what he offers and what he could offer, and maybe not necessarily what he's worth, but remember the checklist. I'm always talking about that kind of stuff, where he fits in on that, rather than whether he should go or whether Celtic should accept an offer, because there isn't an offer yet. Even the reports that are doing the rounds just now are saying summer. They're not saying there's going to be a bid lodged and agreed before the summer or anything like that. But what I would say, Tony, is when you consider Liel Abada, it's always a weird one. Always a weird one. He's a what you'd call an advanced stats behemoth. He always shows up really well, not just with goals and assists, but also the underlying stuff. And then when it comes to the eye test, this is the second season where, I don't mean this back assholes, but consistently, regardless of whether it's you or me or whoever doing the ratings, he's still very much perceived as inconsistent and is always quite low down in those power rankings when they come around, isn't he?
Yeah, because I go on the Abada that came on against St Mirren and changed the game, right? And then the very next game he got a start, didn't he? and he was largely anonymous, wasn't he? And that's the inconsistency, I think, that plagued Abada's time at Celtic, because when he plays like the guy who against Milner, the guy that scored twice against Rangers in the one game, there are times when you think, what, you've got real potential here, but then he kind of reverts to type, and wingers are inconsistent by definition. But I always think that I've never seen him string 3 or 4 games consistently together, because most of the time he's not in for 3 or 4 games, is he?
Well, last season he was. That's what I'm saying. So that's the difference between last season and this season. But that still seems to prevail. That it's still like goals and performances come in bunches. Sometimes it does more than you referenced it. Sometimes it does more than anyone else off the bench to earn a start. But then starts and it seems like he's a wee bit marginalised. So that's why it's such a weird one to gauge. Ultimately, even to go back to the thing that we talked about, the minutes to games equation. Abada's got 12 goals and 7 assists this season, so 19 goal contributions in the minutes equivalent of just over 22 games. So it's just a phenomenal output, despite the fact that I agree, when you come to do the ratings and you come to look at him in the eye test, he doesn't do it all the time. And I think that was the case last season when he was starting more games. But fundamentally, I would call him he's a producer. He produces contributions. He does do it. That's why he's got 12 goals, 7 assists. You see, this is the only way I'll draw a comparison, I suppose, but you see across the city what happens when you might be technically really good, but you can't consistently find the net or set people up. Obviously, you know who I'm talking about, Ryan Kent. Nobody's particularly interested in that. Abada, for all the areas that he can still improve, is already a producer. And I think that counts for a great deal, and will count for a great deal if it comes to what they're talking about in the summer.
Well, I think there'll be genuine interest in him because he's young as well, isn't he? So I think that's always going to count in your favour. And listen, I don't have a downer on Abada at all. I think he, as you say, when he produces, he's excellent. But and also I don't think he's irreplaceable either. So if he were to go, then I would trust the manager, if he was given a significant chunk of the money that he would cook for him, to invest it wisely again and find somebody better or the equivalent. So I really it's a strange one with Abada, because he does so much that I like, if you named it in terms of contribution and goals, but he also does a lot that can frustrate the life out of you. And I look at his, as I say, that second half against St Mirren when he turned the game in Paisley, and then he starts the next game and he was largely anonymous, and just these are the kind of things that managers get frustrated by, supporters get frustrated by, don't they? And then you're throwing up his stats and you go, you can't argue with that. You cannot argue with that, because they're colossal stats. You mentioned that, a behemoth. It's frightening. But you and I both agreed at the start of the season, the power rankings, we said who'd be the most influential player coming off the bench.
The predictions, we both picked him as the kind of 12th man of the year, But it's been a consistent theme when it comes to these power rankings, which is ultimately just what eye test. That is what it is, essentially the eye test player of the season. But he's never anywhere near it, despite the fact that his stats, in terms of goals and assists, and even the advanced stats, suggest that he should be up maybe, if not the podium positions, and certainly top 5 or so. But he's never anywhere near it, and it's just because last season he was playing, arguably, he was having to start too often, maybe, for his age and experience, because of the squad situation, certainly the first half of the season. And then this season, it's almost the opposite. He's primarily, as Kei Matsu says, a kind of ideal bench player. But either way, the prevailing theme is that it's not consistent either way, despite the fact that his stats are very consistent. It's just that's why I find him such a weird player to gauge, such a hard player to gauge. And when I go back to that checklist that I'm always going on about when it comes to a potential transfer, especially one leaving Celtic, I still think it's all in Celtic's favour, should someone be interested. I wouldn't worry too much. Again, I mentioned this, I think, last month or in January. There was at least one report I saw, I can't remember the outlet, that said that his contract was up in 2025. It's not, it's 2026. So I wouldn't worry too much about the contract rejection part, because it's not as if it's expiring anytime soon. His deal's 2026. He signed a 5-year one in summer 2021. So you're still got plenty of time left in that, even if he is rejecting a deal, as reported. So that's in Celtic's favour. You mentioned his age. He's 21, doesn't even turn 22 until October.
Yep.
So age is in their favour as well. And as I always say in transfer negotiations, and it's what people didn't really like hearing about Juranovic or Giacomakis, but people tend to be willing to pay more for potential than actual ability.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. It's not always the case, but a lot of the time it is. So you look at age or potential and what he's already producing, and it will tempt clubs, you'd imagine. Now, obviously, we can't speak to the reported interest at this stage clearly, but put it this way, and I seen Kaiser coming in there saying, right, valuation, Sean, and I'm not going to give a valuation specifically, but put it this way, with all that considered, if he ends the season with one of those kind of runs, you'd be hoping for more than the 10 million, given all the things that are in Celtic's favour that I've just mentioned.
Well, yeah, without a doubt. And also as well, let's not kid ourselves. If he wants to go, he'll go, won't he? I don't think the manager will, stand in his way. The manager's made it clear that he wants players to play for, that only want to play for Celtic. If he's got his heart set on a move down south, or his head's been turned by information that he's been fed by whoever or whatever, then he will go. He will leave the club. I'd not particularly chasing him out the door, but I think when players start, when the speculation starts mounting like this, as it has done with Abada, then you sort of get the feeling that writing's on the wall kind of stuff, unless there's some kind of, brokering of, peace with the manager and the player or whatever, So, and as I say, as one of the commenters saying, very fond of Abada. I can see he's hungry, but the outcomes sometimes don't live up to his desire. As a result, he appears disheartened often. And I'm the same. I really like Abada, but again, if he has made up his mind that he wants to go to England, then I don't know. And I agree with you, Sean. I think there will be interest in him. As a valuation, again, I don't know where to put him. Where do you put him? And do you talk 12, 15? I don't know. Is that unrealistic?
I don't know. I mean, I think for certain the club would be best placed to put in a quite a big sell-on fee anyway, regardless, because he is still young. If he does go somewhere and hits the ground running, then you don't know. You don't know where he might end up and what he might go for. So that's a given. Again, I don't want to put a valuation on him because, one, I find him just so hard to gauge. But I do think that all those things on my usual checklist, especially if it was down south, the only thing that doesn't really tick a box for is that he's not homegrown for an English team. If it's a team that's got aspirations to get into Europe and even just the Premier League squad regulations and stuff. But everything else is in Celtic's favour when it comes to a potential transfer fee. Again, it is just speculation, so we're just taking it at face value what Abada brings, what he's how to gauge him. But Michael Ross coming in saying replacing him would cost a fortune. I'll say this to you, Tony. When you think that replacing his output might be quite difficult, but you've got Sead Haksabanovic there. It doesn't start every game either, so you can give him some of that game time. James Forrest is still like the 4th choice winger, 5th choice winger. You've got youngsters like maybe Rocco Vata could maybe fill a squad void rather than necessarily buying another player. You've got Mikey Johnston out on loan, might come back and fancy staking a claim. So it's the output. It's can these other guys fill the stats? I would hazard, I guess, Haksabanovic could with a prolonged run in the team. I'm unsure about Forrest because I still think his role is playing every once in a while, maybe contributing with maybe a wee match winner, or like he did against Hibs, a hat-trick here or there, or last season like the St Johnstone League Cup semi-final winner. That is his role going forward. I don't expect him to actually fill any sort of game time that Abada would have if Abada were to go. So the question isn't necessarily would they pay for someone to come in and replace Abada. To me, it's the output that he provides. Can players that are already there fill that gap rather than necessarily buying someone? So
the PVG comes in and says if he's made up his mind, because I said that. That's what I want to know. But I was going on what the Maccabi Tikva club director was saying, that he set his heart. That's what he was reported as saying, that he set his heart on the move to England. and he's rejected the offer of a new contract. So that's what I was going on, Pete. I would like to know that as well. Who has he been speaking to, if he has come to that conclusion? But I said at the top, well, when we started introducing this topic, that the Maccabi Tikva director had spoken out of turn by making that public, because that's not him to state that. It's Abada to state that, or it's Celtic to state that, or the manager to state that. So that's what I want to know. I'm not taking that as gospel truth, but it's what's been put out there, and that's now becoming kind of source of a lot of the speculation that we're now talking about. So
before we move on to a very, very consistent guy, going to throw up Kaiser's comment. It says, when you look at how inconsistent Abada can be and how fast fans are to tear strips off their own, he thinks that Ange Postecoglou is managing him fantastically, and I think that's a great comment. I think he's got the benefit of the squad depth that he didn't have in the first half of last season. That meant Abada was basically a key player from the get-go, and it helped that he scored the goal in Ange's first game. But I think, to Ange Postecoglou's credit, and Kaiser's got it right, he is managing his minutes well. Even if maybe fundamentally Abada would want to be playing more, he's in every squad. He plays a lot of minutes. He might not start a lot compared to last season, but he plays a lot of minutes, and he's still get that output. So it's almost what Kaiser's getting at is he's not playing from the start often enough to be getting criticism all the time that he might be. But if he's coming off the bench and contributing and starting the odd game and coming up with 12 goals and 7 assists in a minutes equivalent of 22 games, then you can only say that Ange Postecoglou so far got it spot on with how he's using him.
Yeah, and he also said that he just goes on what he sees in training, doesn't he, with every player? He doesn't pay any attention to all this because it's just noise. As he says, and he's got that unerring ability to shut that out.
Yeah.
Thankfully. And so, yeah, as I say, we will find out more, I guess, in the summer, Sean, won't we? But I assume that Ange will continue to manage him the way Kaiser's saying. He will continue to get minutes. He will continue to produce that incredible goals and assist tally, and he'll add to that. So it's a story that won't go away now because it's out there, isn't it? It will just keep rumbling on.
But as always, as long as the Ange Postecoglou has spoken about it, Callum McGregor spoke about it as well in terms of just kind of blocking out the noise and different things in the dressing room, and they've obviously showed that they do that already. And I've no doubt with this. I've no doubt in that.
Now, moving on to another striker, Sean. March the 21st. As you said, it's a significant day, and you being the Stato, you want to tell them why?
It is. It was on this day in 2004 that a certain Henrik Larsson became Celtic's third all-time top scorer. Bagged a brace against Hibs at Easter Road, I believe it was. To go third behind Jimmy McGrory and Bobby Lennox. And I actually did I was saying to you, Tony, I made a wee mistake. I went with the wrong statistics for Jimmy Quinn. So it was actually Stevie Chalmers who overtook. But so the top five is Jimmy McGrory, Bobby Lennox, Henrik Larsson, Stevie Chalmers, Jimmy Quinn. Few outlets quote Jimmy Quinn's, like, I think it's like not just Glasgow Cup, but other cups and different things. So you could make the case, but it's that's the top five. And it was on this day in 2004, Larsson officially made it onto that podium.
And we put it out as a newsletter last night. It's going up live again on the website, isn't it, later on today? About 7 defenders that tried to shackle Henrik Larsson and failed. Sure. Yeah. Well, they by their own admission, they said he was a phenomenon, and he was a goal-scoring phenomenon.
Some of the terms that these defenders, a couple of these defenders, by their own admission, could be termed agricultural defenders.
Yes.
The language that they use to describe what a Henrik Larsson did to them is quite sophisticated. I can't remember what one it was, but some of them were saying like you could swear he'd vanished into thin air at times. Yes. Playing off their blind spot, causing just utter confusion with the way that he would move. Not intimidated in any way, shape or form by the physical defenders, not intimidated by the kind of more cerebral defenders. Just absolutely magnificent.
Yes, indeed. And seen lots of people say how many goals he got, Sean, but It's
We both know
242.
242 and 315. We know that. We know that. Yep.
And for
You
those
want
who
to show it off, Tony?
there
Yep.
it is.
Yep.
There it is. Now, for those who know or weren't aware of that there and underneath there, that's his signature, because I described every one of them for the pull-out for the daily record when he left the club. One of the bosses said to me, "Why don't you go into a darkened room and find every goal that he scored?" And so I did, and I had the pleasure of meeting him, and he gladly signed it. And that was 242, 315 games ingrained in your mind and my mind and every Celtic supporter's mind, because to a lot of Celtic supporters, he is the finest player that they've seen in the flesh.
Well, that's Pete McGee says a very big compliment here, Tony. He says Henrik's my all-time Celtic hero, and yes, Jinky was amazing. And Pete McGee says he is old enough to have seen Jinky in his prime. So that is some compliment, Tony.
That is the. I mean, the moniker says it all, doesn't it? The King of Kings.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was a special footballer, and those who witnessed that, were around to witness that 5 years of Martin O'Neill's reign, were kind of spoiled, weren't they? Yeah. Every week he raised the bar in terms of Celtic strikers, and it's actually everybody that's followed since. He's no Larsson, he's the. It's very
the best
hard.
ones do that. The best ones do that, don't they? It's a permanent comparison that people can never really live up to. I mean, what? Sorry, on you go, Tony.
And everybody has their own favourite goal for different moments, And when I was going through that, it was something else. It's up there with one of the. It's something that I'm proud of, but it's something that kind of, in terms of actually as an article and doing it, I really enjoyed it, because you lived through it, so you remember most of them. I got to the end and I'd maybe say that, but and I knew it was 242 and 315, but when I got to the end, I had 241. I couldn't find it. And back then, when you keyed Henrik Larsson into your system, it's like the mentions were just it broke your system. It was like 10,500 mentions of Henrik Larsson in the last day or so, a week or whatever. So I kind of had to chunk it down and break it down. And eventually I found it. It was a goal against St. Pat's in a Champions League qualifier, which was like a preliminary round stuff, you know what I mean? And so I don't even think anybody had bothered to register it, because it wasn't on Soccer Base. I don't know where I found it, but I found it somehow, but it took me a while, and I was tearing my hair out, Sean. I was at my wit's end, but we got there in the end. And I think as souvenirs go, it's something that's special to me, and it means a lot for that very reason,
Plenty of comments coming in, favourite goals and stuff, but Kaiser comes in saying, all you need to see is the interview after the 2006 Champions League final, when Terry Henry said Henrik Larsson won the game, he was the difference. And for people of my age, probably for any age really, you were almost living vicariously through that Barcelona team, because Larsson was in it, because he was getting the credit, because it was kind of like, well, we told you so, we always knew he was like that kind of thing. And it was absolutely great to see it.
When he won the Champions League, he always felt that he should have both.
UEFA and
UEFA, because he was sensational in Seville. And I think to this day, lots of Celtic supporters thought he was anointed and he was going to get a hat-trick that night. You just couldn't see any other outcome.
Yeah.
When they made it 2 each. And it remains kind of a big disappointment. But Henrik was sensational in Seville that night, and on many other occasions. Everybody. And
another one from Brian Roberts here, backing up Pete McGee as well, saying that Brian says he was also lucky enough to see Jinky every week, and in his mind, Henrik Larsson was better. Big compliments today, Tony, got to say.
Yeah, and one of the defenders is Jimmy Laughlin, sorry. And he talks about the goal against Dundee United in the semi-final.
The one that defied.
Yeah. He was just like, and then he said he went in at half time, and Alex Smith, who was a Dundee United manager, and they were kind of saying, what about the first goal? And Alex Smith said, sometimes you've just got to dock your cap to a genius. And Jimmy Laughlin was like, well, see, what can I do with that? Because it was an impossible angle. and he threw himself at the ball and scored a diving header. And even the goalkeeper, I still to this day think the goalkeeper can't understand how it's going in. He thinks it's at the side netting outside, and it's a tremendous goal, wonderful goal. But as I say, everybody has memories of their own special goals, and I've maybe said this before, but the addendum to that is that I was really friendly with Alan Stubbs when he was a manager at Hibs, because I covered the Edinburgh beat. And it was a night at Celtic Park, and Alan Stubbs was sitting beside Henrik at one of the tables, and I had these with me, and I thought, it's now or never, so I had the pen, so I really did kind of use Alan Stubbs as a kind of, right, and I walked over and I said to him, can you introduce me to that man? I want to get him to sign this. And and he was like, sure. So I showed him, and so he was kind of reading, and he just said that his son had read it and thought it was a wonderful souvenir. And then I asked him, I unmasked myself as the author, so he said, all right, in that case, I'll sign every page. So he signed every page, and I was really chuffed. But as I walked away, he was still kind of reading, and he just turned around and he said to Alan Stubbs, poor Bert Conterman. He obviously got to the goal, the goal in the 6-2 game.
I was going to say, I think Bert Conterman's still walking about with his heels together.
And the two of them burst out laughing, and I was laughing as I walked away, and I just thought it was a nice touch from him, because he didn't do much press when he was at Celtic, and he also told me that he didn't read the papers as he was signing. He said that something I never did. He said, never read the papers when I was here. He said, but I actually remember this. He said, because my son had it as a souvenir, and really liked it. I said, that's really kind. So, and I say he signed every page. So it's like one of those surreal moments, Sean. You just kind of think, how did I get here? Talking head style, So.
Blind Asaba mentioning his diving header for Sweden.
Oh, that was beautiful.
An absolutely outstanding goal, that one, wasn't it? Saying that, you could say that about the majority of his goals. Even simple finishes, he like that wee roll over past the keeper.
That goal for me, he's like that one that Blind Asaba seen is. He's like kind of when he headers that ball in, it goes in like a rocket, but he's like straight, isn't he? He's almost straight.
He's virtually
horizontal. It's one of those goals you would imagine in a film of today, where that kind of suspended animation. He really was. It was a sensational goal. Yeah, my favourite goal was chip goal against Rangers in the 6-2 game. Yeah, that's Bert Conterman goal. I think that's a lot of Celtic supporters' favourite Henrik Larsson goal. Too many, 242.
It stands out, doesn't it? It's. I mean, there are personal favourites and stuff that stands out. I'm not going to pick a goal. I don't really know what we can say about him that hasn't been said already, to be honest. But supposed to take the professional hat off for a second, already, Tony's quite simply my childhood hero. A player, as Kaiser said earlier on, that gave his best years to not only Celtic but Scottish football, and I think elevated it to a level that I'm not sure I'll see again. I think his legacy, as we've touched on with the Barcelona stuff, his legacy goes beyond Parkhead. And now I'm in no way, shape or form a Man United fan, Tony, but I listened to a Man United podcast last year simply because it was about him. He was there for 5 minutes and they still love him. Yeah. Barcelona embraced him wholeheartedly. You see the quotes all the time. Ronaldinho absolutely loved him, loved being in a dressing room with him, all that kind of stuff. Alex Ferguson doing it at Man United, wanted him as a role model for Wayne Rooney as well as his own talent. It's just, I think Kaiser said it earlier on that his validation out with Parkhead afterwards was our validation as well, and I like that. I like that way of putting it. The only other thing, sorry, on you go.
No, go on.
No, I was going to say the only other way I think I can put it when we're talking about goals, and this is kind of a cop out to not pick a favourite goal. See, long after he'd left, and I'm talking about maybe long after I'd started going to games myself with my mates, rather than just maybe being able to go whenever my uncle had a spare ticket or something like that. Do you remember Birds on the Gallagate, Tony?
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yes,
in their lounge bit, they used to occasionally, or more than occasionally, play the Larsson Greatest Goals DVD on a loop. And more than once, we found ourselves having to rush out that door before we missed the kickoff, just because we'd been taken in by it for about the umpteenth time. He was that guy. You couldn't help it. You'd rather watch highlights of him than the actual team that you were going to watch live.
Well, I think the greatest compliment, or one of the greatest compliments to him, is there is only one foreign player in the all-time Celtic 11, greatest 11 as voted for by the supporters, and it's the Magnificent Seven. And you say 7 years service he gave to the club. He always says Celtic's where he made his name, and he'll be forever grateful for that. But the outpouring of emotion and love that he felt when he left, and the tears that everybody shed, you knew fine well that you were never going to see his like again. And he is, to me, without a doubt, the best foreign player that's graced Scottish football. And I don't think there's any argument with that. Some people might argue that, but I just don't think you can argue the toss with that. And as you say, proved his quality not only at Manchester United but Barcelona when he got his hands on the cup with the big ears and finally got the European trophy that his footballing skills and ability and talent ultimately deserved, and made a telling contribution in the final where one of the strikers of repute, Grace the game, said Arsenal didn't lose, we lost to Henrik Larsson, and as compliments go, that's up there. And you cannot hold a candle to what Henrik Larsson achieved in his 7 years at Celtic. And he is and always will be a legendary figure at the club, and will be revered, as you say, as your hero. And I gave up hero worship when Kenny Dalglish left, and like Ange, I vowed never to fall in love with footballers. But I think a lot of Celtic supporters' hearts, there's a piece of it still bears the Larsson scars, doesn't it? Because they don't want to let go. And you, as you say, you flick on a DVD of Larsson, you're fixed in, you're transfixed, and you see different things now every time you see a Larsson goal. You see how good he was, the team that he played in, and just helped elevate that team at times out of the ordinary. They weren't an ordinary side, but he made them extraordinary at times, and aided and abetted by a squad of good players. But Larsson was the fulcrum in that side, and I think if you didn't cry when Larsson left, then you'd have heart stone, didn't you? You're a braver man than I am, as they say. And his interview when he's standing alongside Martin O'Neill's it's terrific. It's poignant, it's sad, but the end of an era type thing. But I just think that for the unbridled joy that he gave Celtic and the supporters, he'll never be forgotten.
Can't disagree, Tony. You're not going to get any arguments from me with that.
Yeah, and I think moments like this are cause for celebration, Sean, and they should be brought up and remind people that he became the third top goal scorer in the club's history. You're never beating Jimmy McGrory, you know what I mean? And Bobby Lennox, who was there for a long, long time. But my goodness, what a haul of goals, isn't it?
242 and 315, Tony. Not hearing any other
No way. Oh, there, David Ferguson. Now, come on, David. He's crying now. Yeah, I just, it's you cannot look at Larsson and not, be moved emotionally because of what he did for the club and what he gave to you as a supporter. There you go. That's is what it is. It was a wonderful 7 years. I think everybody enjoyed it, and they would love to go back in time, wouldn't they, Sean, and relive it all over again.
Oh aye. Could you imagine them?
Yeah, indeed. But eras move on. There's new heroes, new goal-scoring heroes to be found. And Celtic have got a couple of goal-scoring heroes up front at the minute. We hope in the making. Whether they scale Larsson heights will be up for question. But hey, they'll still get the full backing of the supporters and do what they do and hit the best. But lots of people still saying Jinky's the best. Yeah, that's opinion, isn't it, Sean?
None of this is fact. It's obviously the goal scoring stuff's facts, but the rest of it's all opinion. There's a lot of things that go into who your favourite, who you think the greatest is, and different things, style of play, all that kind of stuff, the era that you lived through. but nah, it's one of the better arguments you can have, one of the better debates. You're just talking about quality. So,
without doubt. My ball comes in and says his chat after the Seville game. I think he's referring to when he held the medal in front of the camera and said, "I didn't come here for this." I think that's what he said, and I think every Celtic supporter's heart sunk when he said that, because he was superhuman that night and deserved a lot more. Which again was why everybody rejoiced when he won the Champions League with Barcelona, because you felt you'd won it yourself with him, didn't you? You genuinely felt that, and I don't think players come and go, but I don't think there's many players that get that adulation, Sean, that when he went on to somewhere else and he did well, that you felt delighted for him. I mean, absolutely delighted for him. And good on him. Henrik Larsson, ladies and gentlemen, the King of Kings. What more can be said? We hope you've enjoyed that today. That's another 45 minutes, Shawnee.
Yep.
You worry about international. We fill up the time on this. We do it every day. But yeah, guys, thanks for your comments and your memories of Henrik and talking about and Abada. We enjoy it. We could go on all day, but that's the thing. Some of us have got work to do. Not right, Sean? Well, we think so, but hey, it's enjoyable work talking about Celtic. But thank you for subscribing and enjoying the daily briefings. We enjoy them too. And just say we've got a new offer. If you want to subscribe to the website and get unlimited access and read everything that's on it, you subscribe to the Celtic Way, and it will cost you £1 for 3 months. www.celticway.co.uk. Try that again, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Hit the button, guys. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. £1 for 3 months for access to everything that's written on the website. And we also say thank you to SENECA. The Celtic Way morning briefing is sponsored by SENECA Medical Group. And SENECA are the #1 hair transplant company in Europe, and they offer innovative hair restoration treatments. You can find out more about SENECA via the links in the description of this video. Thank you very much for all your contributions today, guys. Thank you, Sean. First class as always. Take care. We'll do it all again tomorrow.
Cheers, Tony. Cheers, guys.